My son thought Beethoven was a YouTuber because the song we listened to was added in 2019. I kept picturing him. Hey guys, it's your boy, Beethoven. Hit that subscribe button. What basic, children's age level fact did you only find out embarrassingly later in life? When I was 4 or 5, my mother brought me home a balloon one day. Plain blue balloon with helium. I accidentally let it go and it flew away. Being little, I was devastated. Later that night she comes back from somewhere and tells me she was at the gas station and miraculously, my balloon just came floating by. Being a kid, I was thrilled and totally believed it. So fast forward 20 plus years. I'm on a date and we stop to get gas and we see a balloon floating by the gas station. Probably hadn't thought of that story again in all that time. So I start telling my date the story about how I had a balloon fly away and then my mother found the very same balloon at a gas station, and then as I'm saying it out loud I realize, too late to not look like an idiot, that of course it wasn't the same freaking balloon. I've never seen someone laugh so hard. My mom told us that my dad was going in to set the hamsters free outside. And he said yeah, at the dump, and she threw something at him. I was telling that story to someone much later when I realized they had died. I was typing it just now when I realized he just threw them in the garbage, and the image I have of him driving to the dump to throw them away is a half-updated image from childhood of him freeing them. The last part is just from not thinking about it. I thought until the age of about 21 that when companies had est next to their name, it was estimated that companies were started around that time. It was only when I voiced my disgust profoundly to my then partner that it was ridiculous that no one knew when these companies were formed, and why they were all estimated. She just stared at me blankly for a moment and just went, established penny dropped real hard. You have greatly improved my evening with this story. Same here. Only when I saw a company that said S 2010 and I thought, what do you mean? You started 10 years ago and you don't know the exact date? That I realized it meant. I truly believed that for the longest time that hair grew from the ends of the strands, not from the scalp. When I was 13, I asked my friend who had dyed her hair what she was going to do when the ends grew her natural color. Didn't hear the end of it. My stupidity still pains me to this day. It would actually be more convenient to dye the ends, not the roots. Yeah, but tell this to his 13 years old self. Man, you made me remember when I had a similar thought when was a kid, because I saw some woman with dyed hair and it was already growing natural color and I was like, WTF? Why the natural hair color is coming from the scalp and not from the end of it? Lol. It took me an embarrassingly long time before I realized that when a movie had a blurb from Rolling Stone, it wasn't the Rolling Stones reviewing it. I spent much too much of my life thinking the Rolling Stones created Rolling Stone the publication. I spent until well into my teen years thinking it's cool how the Rolling Stones are so influential in music, they have a whole magazine reviewing shit. Like I really thought Mick Jagger was just giving his opinion on shit. I was 23 when I learned I was allergic to apples. Someone was complaining about their throat closing up after smoking. And I responded with, oh yeah, like when you eat an apple. You can imagine how the conversation went from there. A friend of mine learned he was allergic to bananas when his mom asked why he didn't want one, and he said he just wasn't in the mood for a spicy fruit. We were at least teenagers. Hi, you just taught me that I'm allergic to rambutans and lychees and I am devastated, and my roommate confirmed that these fruits are in fact not spicy. My granddad played this epic decades-long practical joke on me. Every Christmas for as long as I remember, he would put on Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds, only the first disc, and he said it was a Christmas tradition. Every year without fail, he would put the CD on, regardless of if we were at his house or if he came to us that year. It was only at Christmas 2020, where I had Christmas without seeing any family due to COVID restrictions where I live, that I asked my housemate, "Do you want me to go stick on War of the Worlds now, or later?" Housemate looks at me perplexed. "What? You know, War of the Worlds." My granddad insisted it was tradition, only your granddad does that, I told him over video call Boxing Day. I never heard the old man laugh so hard. "It's a family tradition now. Your granddad has inspired me to troll my children and grandchildren in a similar way." I'm an introverted, avid reader. I can't tell you how many basic S words I mispronounced for years until I heard someone else say them. Colonel. I still find myself thinking colonel when I read it. My daughter does this. She kept talking about some place called Belgium before I realized she meant Belgium. I was gonna be a smartass, but then I realized that if someone asked me to pronounce a word from any fantasy book I've read, I would be very embarrassed. This was me at my first Harry Potter book group when I wanted to talk about Hermione. I read the books well before the movies came out, and when the author finally added the pronunciation explanation in the fourth book, I didn't think it sounded as good as whatever I said in my head, so I stuck with my initial rendition anyway. Lol. Okay, so I grew up on a small farm. We had cows, chickens, pig, rabbits and goats and more. On occasion we had to shear the goats. The goats would hold very still when being sheared, like statue still. I saw this on pretty regular occasion. When my parents would take me to get a haircut, they would tell the barber to give me a billy goat cut. Of course, to me this meant hold really still, so I did. Had the same barber for a long time. Eventually he passed when I was in high school, leaving me to find a new barber. Imagine my and the new barber's surprise when he said, "How do you want it cut?" and I said, "I just want a normal billy goat cut." This is one of those things that makes me cringe at night. When I was little, I didn't know what sideburns were called. Mr. Rogers came on TV and I pointed at his sideburn and asked my mom, "What is this called?" I just heard her answer, "Rogers." And for some reason I never made the connection that that was also his name. I was in college and I said something about having to push my Rogers back. Everyone thought I was insane. In my head they are still Rogers. When I was young, I found a Doobie Brothers CD at a relative's. I asked my mom what a doobie is. She said it's a lady's private part and to never say it. I was 17 before I saw someone call a joint a doobie. So did your mom just not want to tell you the truth, or did she really think that? This just reminded me of when I was a little kid and my sister asked our teenage babysitter if she'd ever smoked pot. The babysitter got this super shocked look on her face and said that that was a very personal question and you should never ever ask anyone that unless maybe you were married to them. I eventually figured out it's not considered a particularly personal question by most people, and thought my babysitter was a weird prude. I was well into adulthood when I realized she just didn't want to tell us she'd smoked pot.
I incorrectly said the burst of it instead of the gist of it. I used that phrase in conversation for years until one day when I was nearly 30 got corrected by a Jehovah's Witness that came to my door and asked me if I ever read the Bible. I smugly replied I got the burst of it. One Redditor claimed that for a long time, he thought the following quote, and the name of the figure who coined it, "Knowledge is power." Francis Bacon was read as "Knowledge is power," Francis Bacon. He had never seen it written down and never looked it up, and so believed that it was some weird phrase that was too profound for him to understand.
A few years ago I was searching for different classical pieces in Spotify, getting frustrated that every version Spotify had of works by composers like Beethoven and Bach were covers performed by modern orchestras. My idiot brain was looking for original recordings from the 18th century until it finally realized how dumb that was. If you're interested, Look up historically informed performance practice or something similar. There are a lot of orchestras and other groups that use period instruments and attempt to recreate the playing styles of the time. Tafel music comes to mind as a great place to start, and if you like opera, check out Philippe Jaroussky. New release from Tchaikovsky, the 2021 Overture. My son thought Beethoven was a YouTuber because the song we listened to was added in 2019. I kept picturing him. Hey guys, it's your boy, Beethoven. Hit that subscribe button. My 31-year-old girlfriend thought islands don't touch the bottom of the ocean. Can confirm this is a thing. Was a kayak/surf/snorkel guide in Hawaii, and a staggering amount of people asked me where/how long it would take to swim under the island. How do they not realize a floating landberg would drastically shift positions in the ocean over time? Think of the chaos an unsteerable 4,000 square miles mass of volcanic rock would unleash upon its citizens once it was ready. I am from a northern city in the US. In basic training for the army, I was asked by the chow hall lady if I wanted grits with my eggs/bacon/breakfast. I had literally never seen or heard of them in my life. I lived a relatively sheltered and somewhat ethnic-focused dietary life. I asked her what they were, and she replied, "Well, they're just grits." So asked, as politely as I could, "Are they an animal, mineral, or vegetable?" Luckily, my new friend from Florida was behind me, heard the entire conversation and said to me, "They're just corn, somewhere between cream corn and cornmeal." He then said, "If you put butter and salt on them, they taste just like butter and salt." Love that guy. He's probably a general now. Basic is where I learned that everything can go on rice, gravy can go on anything, and if those are the only two you have, just eat gravy on rice. My mother told me that if you swallowed gum it would stick to your ribs. I was in my second year of college in an anatomy class when it hit me that this isn't true. I was always told it stuck around for 7 years. I was probably in my teens before I questioned it. Dude, my wife and I both got talking about this, and we simultaneously said 7 years. Why do so many people remember being told this weirdly specific number when it's complete bullshit in the first place? I have to wonder how the hell that got started and why so many of us were told the exact same thing. That Apollo 13 was an actual event and not just a movie starring Tom Hanks would have been embarrassing in any context, but all the more so when I was working with Captain James Lovell and asked him why he was signing new paperbacks of Apollo 13 with Tom Hanks on the cover. "Oh, did you work on that movie?" I asked. Beyond awkward. We had an hour's drive together, and so after he patiently explained that he was on that mission and as I had not seen the movie, I asked if he would tell me the story. He laughed and agreed, "Okay." I've never met anyone who didn't think they already knew the story. Hearing him tell it to me was riveting and special. 25 years later I still cringe, but it was one of the best days in my life. He is truly an amazing human. I keep meaning to write it all out for and send it to the moth smile edit, gold. Thank you, kind stranger. There is a lot more to the story, most of which makes me look worse and him better. It took me another decade to appreciate the deeper lesson he offered me that day, but let me sum it up as slow down. Life teaches you how to live and how to love. Also, everyone knows that liking a video is good for the creator. Didn't you know that? Like it right now. I'll see you in the next video.